Welcome back. It's Tim and Julie Harris, and this is your favorite daily real estate coaching and training podcast. Without any further delay, Julie Harris, welcome to today's show.
Yes, thank you. And it's going to be a fun show. I really like this topic because it has such impact. Sometimes it's little things that go a long way. And I think 100% of our listeners will enjoy what we're doing today.
The topic is silent signals, why win clients without saying a word. And what we're going to do is focus on body language and some other things that maybe you take for granted that when not done correctly have a very, I would say, positive or negative effect on your business. Obviously, if you're not paying attention, a very negative effect on your business and really your interactions with other humans. And I'll give you guys for example, right before Julie and I were starting today's podcast, she criticized where my camera placement was because she was saying it's one of her points is that you have to have the camera lens in alignment with your eyeballs. So I removed one of my props. So Julie,
and I changed mine as well. So, we're all working our way through all of this.
Exactly. So remember, if you want notes from any of our podcasts, and here are the notes. There's 1, 2, 3 pages. Oh, 4 pages of notes.
Bonus
If you want that's right. If you want our notes, just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com and subscribe. It is our free newsletter. All you got to do is enter in your email address, and then you have to go over to your normal email and then double opt in saying you want the newsletter, and you are off to the races. And I also want to thank all of you who've been asking Julie and I questions about joining our EXP Realty group. We've been getting a lot, almost an overwhelming number of agents that are interested in joining with us over at EXP Realty. If you're ready for a brokerage upgrade, if you see it on your horizon in the next 60 to 90 days, let's get that conversation started. There's a link down below in information, but frankly, the best way is just to text me directly at 512-758-0206. And again, my phone number is down below in the show description. That is my cell phone number. Don't call, I won't answer. But I will respond to text. And when you text me, just give me a little brief description on who you are, your real estate background, and all those types of things. So go ahead and text me if you're ready to upgrade your brokerage experience. And one of the conversations I have happening later today or tomorrow is with an actual brokerage with 50 agents. So if you're a broker looking to essentially move over to EXP or an individual agent, doesn't matter if you're new or experienced or a luxury agent, let's have that conversation. Text me directly at 512-758-0206. Did I get it right?
You did.
Okay, good.
All right, very good, because you never text yourself. Sometimes we have brain freeze on that. Okay, so today we're talking about silent signals, win clients without saying a word, 10 body language secrets that every real estate pro must know. And we're going to talk about both Zoom and in person because thanks to COVID, I think a lot of people are still, a lot of people like Zoom calls. And sometimes you have clients that are out of town or out of state. So we're going to cover that as well. Before you even say hello, your body has already introduced you. Studies show that people form their first impressions in under 1/10 of a second, and that over half, 55% of communication is actually visual. That means your posture, your gestures, your facial expressions matter even more than what you're saying. In real estate, where trust is everything, mastering those nonverbal communication skills gives you an unfair advantage, especially in the first 20 seconds of, say, a listing presentation or perhaps a Zoom call. So we're going to do 10 expert approved, including you and I, since we've been on many, many presentations, body language moves that are going to help you build instant rapport, project confidence, and win more deals, both in person and online.
Yeah, I love it. This is a great topic. Well, you know what? The reason topics like this are so much fun, Julie, is because everyone can apply them right away. It doesn't cost any money. And then it gives you an opportunity to, get better at it. But it's like your first point. I'll get you started, Julie. Maintain eye contact. That is something that everybody has gotten away from. And again, younger generations, especially, you've never been taught how important that is. Now, there's a difference between maintaining eye contact and then so as a normal person would, and then maintaining eye contact like let's just say a serial killer would. So you don't have that creepy vibe. But what the main thing is when you're talking to people and when you're listening to people, look them in the eye and don't meander about with where your eyes are going, with your attention, because they're going to think, and I know it's become, I don't want to step on your points, Julie, but I know it's become normal when you're talking to somebody and almost acceptable, again, with younger generations especially, to be looking at your cell phone or to be just doing other things while you're supposedly listening to somebody. And I guess that is socially acceptable, but I'm here to tell you that if you don't do that, if you intentionally, maybe even say, I'm going to put my phone on silent so when we're talking, nothing will interrupt me, that makes a meaningful impact because nobody does it. And so ultimately what communication is, or essentially these silent signals are indications that you truly care about the person that you're attempting to communicate with, because I know you do Julie?
That's absolutely right. And in fact, don't just put your phone on the table. Even putting it face down isn't good enough. It needs to be put away. Be fascinated by the person that you are meeting with. They gave you an appointment. Isn't that what you've been working on with all of your prospecting and your lead follow-up on your calls and your networking and all the things? You owe it to them to give them your utmost attention. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because there's a quote from Joe Navarro. I listened to some of his stuff. He's a former FBI agent, and he's an expert on body language. He says, eyes are the window to the soul and the mirror to your intentions. So if you're always looking at your phone, or there's another version of that we teach when we do some of the DISC discussions, the more impatient types, the drivers, the more expressive people tend to be looking around, especially if they're like at a coffee meeting. They're looking, who else is in the room? They're looking everywhere except at the person that they're looking at. So don't appear distracted. It's a turnoff. Make sense?
Well, it does, but I want to just do a little self-disclosure here. Sometimes, like I'm doing it now, when I'm trying to think, okay, I don't even want to,
But that's different than like looking at your phone and trying to
right.
connect with who you recognize in the room.
But exactly. So when I'm trying to think personally, especially if it's something that's going to be of a more, I'm trying to answer somebody's question in a very thoughtful way, let's say, I will have a tendency to intentionally break eye contact with them, because if I am staring at somebody or making eye contact with them at the same time I'm trying to come up with a meaningful answer to their question, their facial expressions will derail my ability to concentrate deeply. So I have trained myself to look away when I'm having conversations that are other than just the normal, flippant off the cuff type conversation. So if you are somebody who's tortured because you don't make eye contact when talking to people, but at the same time you're giving thoughtful answers, there's your hall pass. Works for me. Use it in good health.
And
Point
a lot
number
of people
two.
say, well, a lot of people say that when you look up, you're thinking about the future. In your case, it's what you're going to say that's meaningful. And if you ask somebody and they look kind of down or to the side, it's supposed to be they're thinking about the past. I mean, you can drill down forever on these points, but anyway, we can do number two.
Exactly. But just the main thing is the eye contact, and don't allow, in particular, your cell phone or other people to be the distraction. And I personally, what I'll do is I'll intentionally pause it or silent it, or Julie's point, put it away, because it makes them feel special, because nobody else does that. Everybody is
Undivided attention.
right, especially people that are really close to them. They take for granted that they don't mind them maybe sending a text or whatever while they're talking with them. But the exact opposite is true, because your feelings are definitely hurt because you are being slightly disrespected. Whether you perceive it that way or not, you have to assume the other person does. And again, if you want to ultimately rise above the fray, if you want to know truly what it takes to have je ne sais quoi, or have a real brand that people are going to find attractive for decades, that's just one of the tiny, tiny, tiny little ways that you can modify your own behavior. Julie, point number two, sit up straight.
That's right. So posture is your billboard. It broadcasts confidence or the lack of it. Vanessa Van Edwards, author of Captivate, which is all about this topic. So posture is your billboard. What are you displaying? Do you look like you're bored because you're slouching? Sit or stand upright with your shoulders relaxed but alert. Don't slouch, because it shows disinterest, and it can be perceived as insecurity as well. And this is where I had the Zoom tip. Position your camera at eye level and avoid lounging. We've all been on Zoom calls where the person's like overly casual. They think maybe they don't care, but I always think they must think that their camera's off, because otherwise you'd never look like that on Zoom. So sitting up straight even on Zoom.
I'm going to tell them a funny Zoom story about when Zoe was in Zoom. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So when she was in Zoom school. So if you guys are little kids, you'll have had similar experiences.
Distance learning during COVID
right.
I think she was in first grade, right?
Right. First grade. So somehow they thought it would be a really, oh my gosh, that's incredible. And she's in sixth grade next year. What the hell is happening?
But she did almost all of first and all of second on distant learning. Yeah.
So she would be in our dining room in Puerto Rico, on her, on Julie or my computer, or she had a little computer, and she'd be doing her Zooms. And we always positioned her so we could see what was going on, because the kids had figured out all kinds of different ways, how to send emojis to each other, how to set up side chat, how to do all these other things. And the teachers didn't know it. So the kids were advancing on the use of Zoom like 1000x faster. I'm sorry, the kids were advancing faster than teachers, like 1000x factor.
It was hilarious.
It was hilarious. So anyway, I'm walking past Zoe. And all the screens are up. How many kids were in there, Julie? A dozen, 15?
I think they're about 12.
Okay, so we're looking
Yeah.
at 12 little boxes. It's like the Brady Bunch on steroids. And of course the teacher is doing the teacher thing and she's not
Trying to. Yeah.
trying to, she's not really paying that close attention. And I walk past and I look down at Zoe's computer and what I see are butts. So
Yeah, that
all the
was like stage one was they were mooning each other. And then they were like turning upside down, and then you'd see just their little legs up, under their chair, and they were backwards on their chair. So they first got in trouble with that, and they weren't allowed to do that anymore. Then about a week later, they were banned from making their screens black. You couldn't just like supposedly be there, so they're banned from that. Then they figured out how to change their backgrounds, and they were only allowed to do that during their morning meeting. So this was like computers 101 or Zoom 101 for them. But the interesting thing about all of that is that here's a generation of kids that by the time they were out of first grade, they basically all knew how to type, was the amazing thing to me, and screenshot and do all of these things. So yeah, but yeah, that's a good demonstration of poor Zoom etiquette, shall we say?
Not if you're a first grader.
If you're in first grade.
Mooning your fellow classmates is the jam. All right, point
So
number
funny.
3. Offer a firm handshake, Julie Harris.
Yes, that's right. The handshake is the world's most accepted nonverbal greeting, and it says everything about your confidence. Do deliver a firm but not bone crushing handshake. Don't offer a limp or overly strong grip that can, both of those things kill rapport. It just kind of creeps people out. It's weird. Also, the handshake where it's like 10 seconds too long, they don't let go. That always is not great. Your handshake at a buyer consultation, for example, sets the tone that you're taking it seriously. You take the relationship seriously. It's normal. And I know that some of our listeners are probably still weird about the handshake. You can practice that, but that's kind of the go-to is not bone crushing and not, a dead fish handshake.
Well, so let's talk about something that is also has largely gone away because of COVID, but I'm not sure if it's a good or a bad thing. Oh, I just said the C word, so this video is probably going to get flagged.
Yes, can't do
Okay,
that.
we're not talking about the C word. Okay,
We're talking about the era, not
the era. Okay, we're not talking. Okay, all right. So hugging for the most part is no longer a thing. Prior to COVID, you go to a lot of real estate events. And it was normal for like maybe 25 or 30% of the people to be huggers, not handshakers. And now everyone's a handshaker or even a fist bumper. If I'm being honest, I prefer the fist bump. If I'm being completely honest, because then you don't have to take hand cleaner with you all the time. Not that, I'm a germaphobe, but I'm a budding germaphobe maybe. But here's the technique. If you don't want to be in a hugging situation, or if you want to clarify what you feel comfortable with without having any words or making anybody uncomfortable, you shake the hand. So Julie, put your hand out like I'm about to shake you. And then you put your other hand on, right. Exactly. And that's basically all you have to do. That's 2 points of contact. And then when you do it that way, you're going to sort of, kind of control.
It's like a half hug.
It's a half hug, but you just put your hand right there and that's the end of it. And then you won't have to, I've gone to conferences before where maybe I'll be hugging somebody and then afterwards there'll be some makeup on my collar or whatever, things like that. So just be conscientious of all of that and work within it seems like such a, silly thing to talk about, shaking hands, but it's one of those things that nobody talks about. So that's the reason that we mention it. And as far as like how dominant you should be, there's the whole dominant handshake thing and all this, that, and the other thing. Just do whatever makes you comfortable, honestly.
But read your audience. I always kind of am sensitive to like, some people will take a step back before they shake your hand. They're probably not huggers, like just kind of read your audience.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, if you're not watching us on YouTube, you maybe are missing out. So just go to YouTube and find Julie and I there. I think our YouTube channel now has 130 or 140,000 subscribers. I don't know. I don't pay that close of attention. All I know is that we continue doing what we do and you guys continue watching and listening. And that's all that matters. All right, Julie Harris, point number 4, smile genuinely.
Yes, genuinely. A real smile creates a biological response in others. It literally changes how they feel about you. Do smile with your eyes for authenticity. Don't fake smiles because people always know that, you're fake smiling and it does break your trust and makes you seem kind of flaky. As a Zoom tip, combine a warm smile with nods that show that you're actually listening and paying attention and that you're not secretly watching TV in the background over the Zoom screen. So, you can welcome clients with a sincere smile that eases their nerves. It sets a positive tone for the showing or for the presentation, but get used to doing that. And I think that also helps with your overall demeanor. If you are a more smiley person, you're going to come off as more positive, and you're going to convince yourself. It's like those moments of gratitude. When you show gratitude, you feel better about yourself. So if you can be a generally happy person, that's going to make it easier to have genuine smiles. Make sense?
Okay. Yes, but I'm going to do a full disclosure to all of our loyal fans, listeners, and coaching clients. Ready?
Okay.
Julie and I both have veneers. We both have veneers.
That does
Okay.
help with the smile.
Well,
That's
that's
very
why.
true.
And so like Julie, when she was a little girl, they had her on what the hell?
Tetracycline, yes,
Right,
an antibiotic.
which caused her teeth to turn like yellow, and so she was a little kid with yellow teeth. And then when she and I started selling real estate, a little bit older than that, she had veneers put on. And the thing that was interesting was I didn't realize how unsmiley she was until she had her
I didn't
veneers put
either.
on. Yeah, and she didn't either. So we'd look at these pictures and these videos and whatnot, and Julie wasn't smiling. So subconsciously, she was thinking, I don't want to show my teeth because they're this odd shade of white. And as a result of that, she trained herself not to smile. And as soon as she had the veneers, she started smiling. I had a gap, same thing to a lesser extent, but I had the same. And so we both had veneers installed. Veneers are not that expensive. And I'm looking out the window here, and our neighbor, he had really jacked up looking teeth. And about a year ago, he had veneers installed, and he just smiles all the time. And he's
Yeah.
probably in his late 60s. And
Mhm.
he probably has been waiting his whole life to have it done. But those tiny, tiny little things do make a
It's worth
huge
the
difference.
investment.
Totally.
It seems like a little thing, but it can be a really big thing. And I think between having braces as a kid and having the tetracycline stains, and I didn't, I grew up not even realizing that. How many of you listening, maybe it's not your teeth, maybe there's something, maybe you have a mole that really bothers you that you should have removed. We had our eyes done, so you notice that we don't wear glasses anymore. There are things that you can do to add to your own confidence that will also, in turn, make your prospects and your clients more confident with you.
Now, so we're saying using personal pronouns a lot as we express what we're trying to say, but that's not really where the power of this comes from. So if you're more confident, feeling more confident, what you're going to do is make the other person feel more comfortable with you.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? So if you're not confident with how you look, and if you're not confident with how you're behaving or all these other types of mannerisms, you're making the person that you're trying to help uncomfortable being around you. But and I'm not saying be like, bouncing off the walls confident, but if you are confident because your back is straight, you look presentable, you're essentially enunciating and clearly stating what your thoughts and, all the things, you're making them comfortable. And ultimately the reason they're talking with you, professionally speaking, is because they want to transact. So if getting your teeth done, getting a mole removed, to Julia's example, or what the hell ever makes it so you feel more confident in yourself so that you feel then more comfortable helping more people, absolutely do it. Zero downside. All right,
Yeah, that's
Jillian.
right. And Tim, in fact, I want to point out that there's a whole section in the Harris Rules book that they can get on Amazon that talks about upgrading everything. And it goes into great detail. If this is something you need to work on and build your confidence, you can jump into that chapter. It talks about having, outfits that make you confident when you're presenting, have 5 business presenting outfits, upgrade your glasses or have your eyes fixed or all of those different things. For ladies, go have your makeup professionally done and then buy what they recommend. Little things go a long way. All of my private coaching clients, they have go-to presentation outfits. They have all of this stuff sorted out. Sometimes we even do before and after pictures for fun. So,
Well, I mean, Julie, we can take this a lot farther, and I know you
of
don't talk
course,
about this in Harris Rules, but the reality of it is you might have something that makes you look older than you feel, and maybe a little plastic surgery should be on your horizon. Why don't you look into it? What are you waiting for? Yes, it isn't free, but if it will make it so that you can be more in alignment with the person that you want to be, the person that you feel that you are, then do it.
do it. Yeah.
Yes, do
You'll
it.
be glad you did.
Yeah, don't be judgy. I know when Julie and I were
Yeah.
growing up, there almost was a cultural, I don't even know what, people that had plastic surgery were somehow seen as, outliers. But nowadays, I mean, it's a normal thing. So if you want to have something done that you're not happy with how you look, get it freaking done. Stop
Yeah.
over analyzing. Just go there, see the doctor, get it on the books, get it done, move on with your life.
Or a little bit of Botox when you need it. It's showtime, people. It's
That's right.
okay to upgrade everything.
You only live once and you're dead a real long time. And the worst thing ever is to have your inner feeling and drive not necessarily align with how you look. Well, guess what? It's easier to change how you look than it is to change your inner drive. So at least you've got your mindset in the right place. Now just go ahead and update your aesthetic, and you will be glad that you did, because then you will frankly you'll feel more confident. You'll feel more optimistic. you will feel like, guess what? I had that double chin removed or whatever it was. And now I'm looking like I looked maybe 20 years ago. And now it's finally making it sense to me how I feel so youthful. Now I look a lot better. And now I'm going to go out and learn how to be a listing agent. It's all kind of this part and parcel, but this is hopefully maybe helping you guys to think bigger and maybe in some indirect way, giving you permission to become the best version of yourself. Somebody's going to be watching, give us a negative comment saying we're talking about things that are, purely aesthetic and all the rest of it. Well, guess what? We are seeing people,
That's life.
And remember Julie's first point. She said right here, studies have shown that people's first impressions in under 1/10 of a second, and that over half, 55% of communication is visual. Guys, get it? That's it. Next
Win
point.
that game. Okay.
Yes, win that game. It's easy. Next point.
Okay. So point number 5 is easy. Use open gestures. What does that mean? When your hands are open and visible, you're seen as more trustworthy. Don't cross your arms or hide your hands, as that makes you more defensive and unapproachable. Also, if you notice and you're presenting then somebody else, whether they're on Zoom or in person, and they sit back and they cross their arms, or they cross their arms and their legs, they're starting to feel uncomfortable. Something's going on with that. So gesture naturally, but stay within the frame. Make sense?
Yes, it does. And so when she says talk with open hands, do it like this, right? Do it. And then what you can do when you're making, this is all stuff we train you guys to do in coaching, frankly. But when you're talking to someone, you're trying to express yourself. This is the international way of expressing yourself. When you're trying to convey a feeling where you're inviting them to, share a thought with you. And then when you're trying to invite them to commit to you, go like this. So these are all the types of things you guys can learn in Premier Coaching, or certainly when you are working with Julie and I as an elite level coach. Many of you have figured out, especially those of you who are in elite coaching because you're operating already at a higher level than most agents in your marketplace, you have little things that you figured out how to do what you don't even think that you're doing. And when we bring you to elite coaching, one of the things we're going to do is I am going to put you on a Zoom. I am going to have you present to me maybe the listing presentation or just one of the pages from the pre-listing pack. And I'm going to see how you carry yourself. And then we're going to talk about the little things that you can do different to make it so people feel comfortable doing business with you. See what I just did with my hands? Same idea. Remember, try to watch us on YouTube if you can. All right, Julie, next point is point number 6. Yes.
Okay, so respect personal space. Proximity is a language. Don't get too close and you violate the trust. If you're too far, you create too much distance. So, you've got to, again, read your audience. Maintaining 2 to 4 feet of distance in professional settings is about normal. Don't invade space. That can feel aggressive, especially in higher stakes moments. It's really interesting. You were talking about Zoe and the distance learning. I've been after that, when we're in real life. I've seen the kids do this to each other, like standing in the lunch line. One of them will look at the other one and go, personal space. Not everybody's the same with that. And this is also a cultural thing. Sometimes you'll notice certain cultures are better with closer or further away. But in general, your standard is 2 to 4 feet away in a professional setting. So, adjust accordingly, but that's the standard. Make sense?
Zoe used to get in trouble for that because she would invade people's personal space. She was very huggy. And some of the kids who had siblings who had learned not to do that when they were younger, she had some developmental issues with that for a very short while, but I remember that.
Yeah, that's
You're
right.
You're bouncing your podium a little bit. Yeah.
My head.
Yeah.
Zoom etiquette. Okay. So
your table was bouncing without you moving your head, actually.
I know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 7, observe facial expressions. There are micro expressions that betray emotion before we're even aware of it ourselves. Watch for cues like squinting, raised eyebrows, pursed lips. Don't misconstrue signs of confusion or discomfort. That can, damage the trust. So be careful that you don't overread somebody, but if they're squinting, maybe they're thinking about something. I tend to, maybe do something like that, especially when you're presenting something that you've presented 9 million times. Some of our listeners are very experienced, right? So maybe you're presenting something and you, in your mind, are totally just bored with explaining a CMA. You don't look bored. And if they look like they've got to just digest that because they're squinting their eyes, they're like, I don't know if that's right. That doesn't sound right to me. Give them a pause to digest that. Read their facial expressions. Maybe they have a question that's coming out about what you're presenting. Don't just zoom through that because you're bored. Does that make sense?
It does. So by the time you reach adulthood, you subconsciously are able to read people's micro expressions without actually having to think about it. Worrying too much about how to read people's micro expressions is not what we're, suggesting you do.
Mhm.
But do trust your intuition about
Yes.
the people you're communicating with, and do give yourself, to Julie's point, an opportunity, or give them an opportunity to take a little break and just say things like, before I go on, are we on the same page? Does that make sense to you? Am I going too fast, or am I going too slow? Or just stop all this and say, what are you thinking right now? I'm just curious. Say
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then what you'll do is, so sometimes you'll read a micro expression, or your subconscious mind will tell you this person's losing interest, but all they're really doing is thinking about what they're about to have for lunch, you know? So you
Yeah.
can misread even subconsciously the micro expressions. But like I said, now we're getting into the woo woo, which we never tread. All right, Julie, next point.
Okay, next point, number 8, is actually one of my personal bugaboos. It drives me crazy when somebody's like a foot tapper fidgeter type. Control your nervous habits. The more you fidget, the more others will question your credibility. Practice stillness and grounded energy. Fidgeting, tapping, shifting around makes you feel insecure or unsure, and that's not what you're trying to project. So sit with intention and stay focused. And, we talked earlier about putting your phone away. Don't try and multitask. That's kind of a symptomatic fidgeting type of thing that you can do. When I was in music school, they did this exercise where you had to plant your feet flat on the ground and sit up straight and just be calm to stop you from fidgeting. And I remember back then it was really hard because, a lot of the things we were learning and playing, it made me uncomfortable. And I maybe had some nervous tics back then. You can do that now. There was actually something called Alexander theory that went very deep into this, and different grounding mechanisms and breathing and calming yourself. But the bottom line is, if you have some nervous tics, and if you don't know, maybe you don't know that you've got them, ask your spouse or your family or your partner, your best friend, if you notice, do I have anything that goes like that? And they might say, you know what, when you're nervous, you tend to tap your foot, or you twirl your hair, or, you bite your nails, or whatever it may be. But that's not a good presentation technique. Make sense?
Well, when you're presenting, it's also very important to have both feet on the ground because you feel more secure and grounded. Again, it's a
Mhm.
subconscious thing, but
Yep.
you'll feel more, they say, rooted if you have both your feet on the ground. So definitely be paying attention to that. And as far as what to always do with your hands, what makes people nervous is if they can't. So there's, different studies have been done on this, but if people can't see your hands, that makes them nervous because they don't know what the hell you're doing. Like you guys probably know this, but the reason that culturally we wave at people is to show that we don't have a weapon in our hands. That's the reason it's kind of, evolved through the ages, that's a way of communicating with folks. So if you're not sure what to do with your hands, just put them someplace where people, like I'm doing my hands here on purpose so you guys can see, but put your hands someplace where they can see it. It'll make them feel more comfortable when they're communicating with you because they don't have to worry about what you're doing. So next point is, Julie, this is totally off color, but somebody out there, one or two people, I appreciate it. You remember during COVID, there was that CNN guy that was on a Zoom from his house. Do you know what I'm
Uh-huh.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so you couldn't see his hands, and he got caught on camera during an interview doing something that he shouldn't have been doing. It turns out he was wearing a suit, from belly,
Like a
from
jacket.
jacket, tie, everything, but down below, nothing on. It was a party down south. And bro was cranking out the CNN interviews half naked,
Ugh.
occasionally entertaining himself. That's all I got to say about that. So from then on, he did have a little reprieve, a little break from CNN. But now when you see him, I'm not making this up. You know where his hands are because he always shows them. True story.
Little
You guys know what I'm
lessons
talking
learned,
about.
right? I remember I was on a CE class during the C word era, and there was somebody having a glass of wine, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning.
You showed
Yeah.
that to me. You're
Yeah. I'm
getting
like,
CE. There's like 50 people in there.
dude,
And
you're a little comfortable.
there was this guy, and it was and it was definitely Chardonnay because no, Julie, it wasn't for CE. That was you and I presenting to some
Oh,
big
maybe that
group.
was an EXP thing. I don't
I don't
remember.
remember, but we walked by. We were both on the Zoom, and there's, maybe there was probably at least 50 people there. But I'm looking at this guy, and he's got a freaking wine glass sitting right in front of his camera. And I thought, well, maybe it's water. And then I looked at it because I'm talking. I looked at it and go, you know what? That looks like Chardonnay to me. And I said to him, and his name was like Bob or something. Of course,
Oh,
it was
that's right. You
Bob.
did say something to
I
him.
did.
Right.
And you know what he did? He picked up the glass, he
Right.
clinked it against the camera, and took a swig. It was like 8:30 in the
He
morning.
was owning it, man. Yeah. So anyway, assume that you're on camera, even if you think you're not. Okay. So speaking of which, point number 9, minimize background distractions for Zoom. Your environment speaks before you do. make sure it says that you are professional. I was thinking when I wrote this point, having a clean, tidy background or a neutral virtual one, distracting clutter, chaotic visuals, that pulls focus away from you. And, every now and then when we're hiring somebody, we use that company Spark Hire. And do you remember, because Spark Hire has the interview on video. And I remember, you quickly go through some of these just on the background. I remember one of them had this really like rickety looking window air conditioner in the background with like duct tape on it. It's just really distracting and not very professional. I remember another person 100% looked like they showed up for the interview in their pajamas. Think about what you're doing.
If you guys don't know what Spark Hire is, here's what, Julian, we do this when we want to add staff to one of our businesses, is we just run a normal ad, monster.com, whatever. And then what they do is they schedule an interview. And the interview that they schedule is done through Spark Hire. And then Spark Hire, we've loaded up questions that we want them to answer. And Spark Hire gives you a lot of great questions to ask, and then Julie and I will add others. And so they show up to their interview, not realizing that the video is going to be videotaped. So then a question starts showing up, and then they're given a certain amount of time to answer the question. And so that's the reason that you can see these folks in their actual environments. And it is so freaking hilarious how disconnected many of their resumes are to how they actually are based on how they actually present on an actual interview. Incredible. But it's a great Spark Hire, for what it's worth, really has turned out to be one of our best tools when it comes to recruiting agents to our group at EXP, but also anybody that's frankly wanting to work for us. All right, Julie, next point.
Okay, number 10, use confident movement. People decide if you're a leader in the first 30 seconds, often by how you walk into the room. This is related to the handshake. It's related to standing up straight, but have confident movement. Move deliberately, stand tall, walk with intention. Don't hesitate or be jittery with your movements. That's read as uncertainty. That's an easy one to do, especially as you practice your presentations. Now, I have, before we let them go, and by the way, if you're watching on Zoom, this is ice water, just saying, in case anybody were
this actually is wine. No, it's not. It's coffee.
No, it's coffee. Got to get your caffeine in.
But Julie, you mentioned walking into a room. All right. Walking into a room, there's an art to doing that where you can command attention. And I'll tell you what not to do. Then what you will then know what to do. Don't just look for people and don't just hang out with them the whole time. That's the worst thing you can do. So if we're walking into a cold room where we don't know anybody, and Julie and I do this socially, we used to do this professionally too, is she and I, generally speaking, will split the room. She'll go one way and we'll go the other. And then we'll sort of, walk around, just get a feel for the room. And if you do that, you can quickly figure out who the essentially most influential people are in the room, because everyone's gravitating towards them. And then we'll try to basically strategically, this is in a professional environment where we want to have the most impact at the highest level in the shortest period of time, right? And so then we'll start essentially working it that way. We're not going to hang out with people we know. We're not going to hang out on the fringe. We're going to go right to where the core is in the room. And then we're going to go up and we're going to talk with all the people. We're going to talk with the obvious alphas in the room. And then we're going to talk to the people that are essentially alpha adjacent, because that's, like I said, making the most impact in the shortest period of time. Socially, we don't care as much, truthfully. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple strategies for you. And if you are really socially awkward, you can go with a wingman. So a wingman would be somebody who is generally more expressive than you, somebody who's a great connector for you. So find somebody, if you're super introverted, go find somebody who's not super introverted, and then who's, has an easier time making friends with folks, and then hang out with them, and they'll do a lot of the introductions for you and work it off there. But rule number one is don't get stuck just talking with one or two people if you're trying to, get to know a lot of people.
That's great advice, because it's easy to do, especially if you're not as gregarious, you're not as outgoing, and you find that one person that you feel like has saved you from this social situation. So that's definitely a skill to develop. And, that's why in coaching, we talk a lot about the Ford script. That makes it a lot easier.
Julie, when you and I were starting to get to know more people that were very much, okay, I'll give you an example. When Julie and I first got married, and in high school, when we first got married, we had a car cleaning and detailing business. And we had some very, very affluent car cleaning customers. If you guys know what YPO is, Young Presidents Organizations, that's how we networked with to get a lot of these customers. Anyway, we had a really wonderful client named Jack and Ann Rosselli. And Ann would invite us to her very high profile parties. There were all these YPO folks. And she would go out of her way to introduce us to every single person. And she wouldn't say, this is Tim and Julie. They're my lackeys that clean my BMW. She'd go and introduce and she'd say, oh, they go to Ohio State, or, they just got married, or they grew up in Worthington, or things like that. And then she would allow us to basically mingle with all these folks, and
That was great.
we get tons of
gift.
business from that. Yeah. But so that's what I'm saying. It's like, even if even if you're, for example, transcending your normal, lot in life, and you're wanting to work with more upper end clients, just attach yourself to somebody who's already got those connections. Anybody of true influence, the way that they have got their influence and the way they keep their influence is by sharing it with others. So when you find truly influential people, they're going to go out of their way to help you get to know their friends. That's the way it always works. All right, Julie, anything else?
Well, they can refer to the newsletter for a little bonus section. I added global nonverbal pitfalls to avoid that you might not be sensitive to. If you've got some prospects or some clients that are not the same culturally as you, you might do some research. For example, and I'm not going to go through all of them because they can get them in the newsletter. Don't show the bottom of your shoes. That's offensive in parts of the Middle East, Asia, and India, especially when you're crossing your legs. So you can go into, lots of these different things. Again, read your audience, do your research before you show up, and be a bit sensitive to those things. So that's a little bonus section you can get in the newsletter.
And it's in our notes for today. So make sure you guys subscribe to the newsletter. Just go to harrisrealestatedaily.com and subscribe to the newsletter. In the meantime, make sure, if you're on YouTube, Julie always gets mad at me if I don't say this. Why don't you say it on YouTube? What are they supposed to do?
Like and subscribe. Watch us on YouTube. Don't just listen. Check us out. And we're always open to other podcast ideas so that you can send us a message there as well.
Yeah, message us over on Instagram or message us on YouTube. Give us some show ideas, some suggestions, whatever you think we should be focusing on, and we'll certainly do so. Frankly, a lot of our best podcast ideas have come from all of you guys. In the meantime, have a fantastic day. We'll talk with you on the show tomorrow.